Hi students, so this is your pasta PowerPoint. There is a set of notes in your Canvas agenda for today that you should have opened up so you can fill in the highlighted parts that are needing some information. When we get to that part, I'll be sure to let you know, like, hey, this is where you should be filling in some of this stuff. So to start though, I just want to walk us through a little bit of history, and I do have some videos that you'll be able to watch here after a bit. This first video is a quick pasta history. It's off of the YouTube channel. So if at the end of this PowerPoint, if you could take a look at that, it's not even a full 2.5 minutes, but it does a really nice job of just short, sweet, to the point. This is where pasta comes from. Here's some fun facts about it, who discovered it, all that cool stuff. So be sure to take a look at that. One slide I do want to show you would be about drying pasta. So the video does a really good job of the history, where it originates from, all that great stuff. But then one thing it hints at is this idea of drying pasta, because pasta became such a popular food for many people in many different countries. And when it was gaining popularity, people were trying to figure out ways to mass produce it. So I want you to think back to years ago, New York City, Brooklyn area. You've got these really booming communities, super tall buildings, and thinking about those buildings, nothing is up on the rooftops, at least not all of them. So, what can we use that space for? And what was cool was that some of these pasta producers, they would actually take their pasta up to the roof, and they would have these huge poles going back and forth across the roof. And then that's where they would drape the pasta, and then they would dry it. Then they could package it, they could sell it. It was a really cool thing. So that's what you're seeing in the pictures here. The picture on the right is a great example for when they didn't have a rooftop. Then there were times that they would find a huge open courtyard, and they would dry the pasta within the courtyard. So it's just really awesome to see food history, because we obviously now have production facilities that would do the drying process for us. We wouldn't necessarily see pasta just strung out like this all over a rooftop. So it's just fun to see, like, how things were done, and where we're at today with making these same foods. This next slide has a video clip from history.com that does a really good job talking about how pasta found its way to the United States and who helped to introduce it. So, again, at the end of this PowerPoint, if you could take a look at that video clip, that would be fantastic. And now we get into the information that is needed on your notes. So if you're looking at your pasta notes, there are parts that have highlighted spots. That's the parts that we're looking for information to be filled in. And the first bit of information you're going to fill in is sustained energy. So we know that a health benefit of pasta is sustained energy, this idea of long-lasting energy, because we know that pasta is a great source of complex carbohydrates. And that's what's providing this slow release of energy. Because in our health classes, we would talk about the difference between complex carbohydrates versus simple carbohydrates. Well, we know complex carbohydrates are long lasting energy, whereas simple carbohydrates are more of that quick burst of energy. So if we know that pasta has complex carbohydrates, well, then it makes more sense for us why we see many athletes do what we call carb loading, where they're eating pasta before they have their big races or their big events, because it's fueling their brain and muscles so they're able to perform in whatever the event or race might be. Another health benefit of pasta, especially if we're choosing whole wheat pasta, is that it can provide 25% of our daily fiber requirements in just 1 cup. And if you think of 1 cup of pasta, that is not a lot at all. So, in just that 1 cup, 25% daily fiber requirements, that's huge, because we know that fiber can reduce our risk of certain types of cancer. We know it can reduce our risk of type 2 diabetes. We know it can reduce our risk of heart disease. It can help us to maintain a healthy weight. And we definitely know fiber is helping with our digestive system, our intestinal tract, keeping things free and clear and free flowing so our body can remove any wastes that are present. Other health benefits of pasta would be that it's low in sodium and it's cholesterol free. It's also a good source of iron, B vitamins, and folic acid. And I found this graphic for B vitamins that I really like because sometimes we forget what each specific B vitamin does. So, this is just a fun little snapshot of all the great things that these B vitamins can do for us. Other benefits of or other health benefits of pasta, we would have to look at the glycemic index. So what we would want to do is consider foods that have what is a low glycemic index, meaning they are foods that are not going to cause our blood sugar or blood glucose levels to rise quickly. So anything that has an index of 55 or lower, that's considered low glycemic index. Anything that's 70 or higher, that's considered high glycemic index. So if we look at the graphic here, we can see foods that would be considered low versus foods that are considered high. And then we have some foods that are kind of in the middle. Now, I want to point out with this, yes, pasta would be considered low glycemic index. However, what we need to consider is that anytime we are going above our serving sizes and we're starting to eat too much, well, obviously, too much of a good thing can now become a bad thing because I am now getting more in my body that maybe it's not able to handle. And kind of on the flip side, if I had you look at vegetables and fruits, specifically like onion and watermelon, those are things that are considered pretty good for us. But if we're eating too much of it, then yeah, it's going to start to add up and our body's not going to appreciate that. So whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, again, it brings back the notion of make sure you're staying within your serving sizes. Otherwise, again, too much of even a good thing can start to become a bad thing or a negative impact on our body. Some facts versus myths, because we know a lot of myths are out there about carbohydrates. One in particular is that carbs will 100% make you fat. Like it's all carbohydrates' fault. Like carbs are bad. It's the worst thing. Well, actually, carbs don't have to be a bad thing. So the fact is that reducing your calories, not your carbohydrates, helps you lose weight because it all comes down to your calorie intake. What we know from health is that if I'm eating more calories than my body can burn off in a day, then yeah, those extra calories are going to start to store in my body, typically as fat, and that's what could be causing my weight gain. So we want to be watching our calorie intake and making sure we've got an even balance of what we take in compared to what our body can burn off. The other thing that kind of builds off of this idea with carbs is fact that according to dietary guidelines, 45 to 65% of our total calories should come from grains. That's what's recommended. And before we just simply cut carbs out cold turkey, we want to make sure that we're doing our research to make sure it will actually be a good health choice for our body. This kind of goes back to when we were talking about gluten free products and you were writing me gluten free letters. What we absolutely do not want to do is just jump on a diet bandwagon and, like, oh, everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to do it too. Mm, Not necessarily a good idea because not everyone has the same body. What each of us needs looks a little bit different. So we want to make sure that we're doing our research to know indeed, yes, this is a good lifestyle choice for us before we just simply jump in head first. So yeah, there might be some people that very well they benefit from really reducing or eliminating carb foods from their diet. But then there would be others where no, it's not a good choice for them. So again, do your research, please. All right. So this is the part of class where I'm going to let you start kind of working on your own at your own pace. So first things first, what I'd like for you to do is go back and look at those videos about pasta history, how pasta was introduced in the United States. And then once you're done with those, then I want you to do the myth or fact. And if we were in class, we'd have done a team Kahoot because it's kind of fun to put our heads together to see if we know the answers to these or not. But what I've done instead is you've got two places to find these myths and facts. So, one place is at the very bottom of your notes. There are the 10 statements, and what you'll want to do is determine if you think it is a myth or fact. The other place it's posted is in your Canvas agenda, and it's posted as an assignment or like a quiz. And so the thing I like about that is if you do that option, you'll actually get real time feedback because it will tell you if your answer was correct or incorrect. But I'm throwing both options out there just because I know sometimes the technology, when it works, it's great, but when it doesn't, it can be frustrating. So I'm hoping the fact it's in two places will play to our advantage in case one of them isn't working so great today. So again, just to recap, you're watching the two videos, you are going through the statements and deciding if they are fact or myth. And then once you are done with that, yeah, you've got our agenda done for today. So let me know if you have any questions and we'll just go from there.